Augustino, your background is noisy.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's good. Thank you. Hi, Chris. You okay, Chris? All right, let's get started. How's everybody? Okay, so I look at your master story list and the burn down charts. So I have a few comments. Well, I set the three draw boxes for them, and then so far two were due, and then the third one is Wednesday night, 12 o'clock, right? So you should have submitted two, but many of you didn't. Um, some of you didn't do anything. Some of you didn't submit anything the whole semester. So nothing at all for the whole entire semester. So I guess you have a second thought on the course, and you're gonna have to decide what you want to do. I think it's too late to do anything at this moment if you haven't done anything, because we are technically this is the 10th week, so we have really just 4 weeks left before we wrap up for the whole entire semester. Now I look at the burn down charts and then your master story list. I found a few things I would like to talk about. Okay. Um, first of all, first of all, the master story list. The master story list cannot be just 3 lines. Cannot be just a user module, tracer module, and history module. Okay, that's not specific. Okay, it defeats the whole purpose if you just make those general statements. It's not what we need. Instead is we want the specifics, like how much specific tasks you're going to implement for each module, and also how much effort you're going to put in on each task. Okay, so the way to do it is to create some kind of a table, right? So on the table, you're going to put down the information. All right, so I'm going to share with you the my. So I made a table just to show what I meant. Okay, I didn't complete the table, but I kind of show you. So I used Excel, right? So you see there's a user module, right? And then underneath there's a history module, and then there's a trail module. The user module, first of all, you have to do is you have to somehow you have to be able to store data, and that's the core of everything, right? That's everything gets stored, retrieved, and so on and so forth. So if you decide you want to use a tree map, that's fine. Then you just have to implement such a data store. Okay, so you have the data structure incorporated. Then you have to add all the methods. Okay, like an add method, the delete method, and then the search method, so on and so forth. Okay, so you want that. Now to do that though, because you're not gonna store individual username and password. Instead, you want to store user objects for each user. So in order to do that, you have to create a user class. And the user class will have the instance variables such as username, password, so on and so forth. Okay, so that will be one task to do the data store. And then you may need to also differentiate between regular user and admin user. Okay, you could use a variable to do it. So if you want to use a variable to do it, then you can have an elum. Elum will only allow two types of users, regular and admin. Okay, so that's how you can distinguish. The reason you want to distinguish the two types of users is because they have different privileges. The regular user can create a user account, can update his or her own account, but he cannot delete other people's accounts. Okay, he cannot modify, cannot delete other people's accounts. So that's the difference, right? And then so the data store will allow have methods that will add user, search for user, remove user, and now importantly, the whole idea of this agile development is well, as you finish each task, you should implement JUnit test and Java doc. Theoretically, you should do Java JUnit test before you actually write the code. Theoretically, okay, but people don't enjoy, most people I would say don't enjoy a clean line there, so they just do both at the same time. Okay, one after another right away. So I found a lot of people decided to do JUnit test and Java doc when they finish all the modules in the very end to do it. That defeats the purpose. That's not what you should do. Okay, the idea is when you finish a module, when you finish a task, that module, that task should be completely finished or almost completely finished. The only exception I made was the GUI part. So the GUI part could be part of the task as you do it, or you could wait until the end to implement the GUI part. Okay, that's the only part. But the JUnit test, the Java doc should be done as you do each task, as you write each method. Okay, in other words, when you add a user method, search method, remove method, right? You should write your Java doc. You should be able to test to make sure that method works. And also, you want to use Java doc to document those methods. So they are integral part of the methods you're writing. Okay, they are not separate things. So because we never do this before, JUnit test or Java doc before, in 148.218, we basically just write a method to add a user or search method or remove method, right? And so it appears to people that, or to you guys, that those are two different things. Okay, you can do these methods without doing JUnit test and the Java doc, but in fact, they should be part of the whole thing. It should be integral part. Okay, so as you write a method, right away or before it, ideally is right before you add a user, you should already add the JUnit test to test that the method the user gets added, or even if you do it afterwards, that's fine. But you must have the unit test, JUnit test, and Java doc there. Okay, you cannot add them all the way when you finish the whole project, because by doing that, you're going back to the old way of doing things. Okay, like the waterfall. Okay, now the only exception is the GUI part can wait. The GUI part can wait is because the GUI usually is very diverse. It could be a web application, that means you want HTML for GUI, or you can use JavaFX for GUI, or you can have any other mobile XML for GUI when you use Android mobile application. That's why very often you may have different kinds of GUI for the same application. Like you have a program that can be used on desktop, that can be used on mobile phones, can be used on tablets, so on and so forth. So that's the only reason you can delay the GUI part until later, because when you made a decision what you're going to use, then you can do that part. However, for you guys, it's probably better to have the GUI early on. Okay, so this way you get the whole entire user module finished with the GUI, and then you're done with that module. But if you do want to wait, that's fine. But since we're not going to implement, we know we're not going to implement mobile, we're not going to implement HTML, CSS, then just do the JavaFX. Okay. Last Monday night, okay, I thought that many of you would be interested in the actual lecture on scene builder, but I think only 2 people showed up. That was a little disappointing. So we actually spent 3 hours on this, on how to use scene builder to build multiple scenes, and we dissected what the components of a scene builder and how they interact with the regular programs we write in Java. So, but that day nobody were there to record it, so I don't think we have a recorder for you, and probably don't you're not interested in anyway. So I think if you had that, then you could just integrate in the module as you go. Okay, if you do that way, it's actually very good because you're gonna have a view, you have a controller, you have the model, all in one place, in one module. So when you're done, you're done. Okay, the whole module is done. You don't have a separate GUI module to add to it. Okay, and also your code will be a lot cleaner, a lot more tighter, as we can see today. Okay. All right, so once you've done that, then you finish the data store part. Once you finish the data store part, say you use tree map, then you can implement the user login. Okay, once you implement a user login with or without GUI, and then you can create an account. Okay, so they allow you to create an account, and when you've done that, when you finish that, then you can do some admin related tasks. For example, you can search for users. A regular user cannot do search for users, but admin can, right? Admin needs to find out all the users or any particular users on this application. So you'll be able to find all the users, but regular users cannot do that. So that's where the search method comes in. Okay, the regular user cannot do search. They can only log in with a username and password to know whether that was legitimate username and password or not. If it's not, it's not going to tell you how many other users are there, what their usernames are, what their passwords are. The regular user cannot see that information, but only the admin can see. Admin can see, can delete any number of users, can actually modify number of users. For example, a regular user may be set up as regular user, but then the admin could change the setting to make that user admin, so that user can do search and do other things as well. Okay, so there are some related tasks related to admin role, right? That role. So you may want to add that part. Okay, so only when you finish all that, then you finish the user module, because it has all the components, the code, the test, the documentation, GUI, everything, for all the functionalities you needed. Then you say the user module is finished. Okay, now um, this effort, okay, is pretty interesting. There are people put in different units. Some people put days. Okay, that's kind of very general. So, for example, somebody would just say user module 2 days, or 3 days, history module 3 days, trail module 3 days, total 9 days, finish. That's, you can see that's very general. That's really doesn't give you the benefit of breaking it down to monitor the progress. It doesn't give you that kind of the purpose. So that's why that's not a good master story list. Okay, you want to be specific as much as possible. So this way you can kind of get a good idea how much time will cost you to do each task. Like a create a user class, you probably can reasonably say 30 minutes, right? Okay, or 1 hour at the most, because you can get your finger on that, how many minutes, how long will take you to create a user account, right? To create a user class, I mean. And then you say, okay, 30 minutes maybe to allow me to distinguish regular user or admin user. Should I use a inheritance to have multiple child classes? Okay, like regular user child class versus admin class, or should I just use a variable to distinguish the two? Right. So maybe another 30 minutes, maybe another hour, maybe. But you do know cannot be like 2 hours, 5 hours. It shouldn't be. Right. So that's when you have a solid footing, because that's how you know how much time it's going to cost you. Now imagine you just do a user module. Okay, it's really hard to tell how many hours it's going to cost you, because you don't even know how much details involved, how much work is actually involved. Is a user module is too general in that sense. Okay, but the only thing will get you a good solid footing is when you do something, you know how much time it's gonna cost you to do it. Like create a user class, usually 10 minutes, 20 minutes, right? Now, if you add all the JUnit tests and other stuff, maybe it will take an hour, but that's about it. That's about it, right? So search user means add a search method, add user means add a add method. So those should be short. You have a good idea how long it will take you to add a add method, add a user method, or search user method, remove user method, right? Okay, but when you do those, do JUnit test, they do Java doc right there. Don't do it separately. Do it right there. So if you think it will take you half an hour to do a search method, now maybe an hour and a half, an hour, okay, that should be it. It shouldn't be 5 hours. Okay, but you do feel like you have a solid footing to make that judgment or make that determination. So whatever you want to do, just add a unit to this, right? You add a unit. So maybe you want to use hours, maybe you want to use minutes, that's fine to represent the effort. Okay. Uh, don't use days. Okay, don't use days because days is harder to judge. Okay, what is a day? A day could be 24 hours if you don't go to bed, right? Or day could be 1 hour if you have other things to do that day. So days is less precise than number of hours, right? Less is harder to gauge what a day's works worth of work is. Okay, it's very hard to tell what do you mean by working a day. Do you mean 24 hours? Do you mean 8 hours? Do you mean 2 hours? Do you mean no hours? Okay, so I think a good measure may be hours. Okay, a good measure of hours. So this way, you don't have you could say, okay, I'm gonna have 2 hours break in the morning. I'm gonna work on that feature. Okay, and then have another 2 hours in the afternoon. I can add that. So instead of using days, instead hours. Also something similar, you can do minutes, but minutes is a little bit harder to use because minutes needs you to that unit requires you to be pretty precise. Okay, you're talking about 15 minutes, you're talking about 25 minutes, but that's kind of too precise. I think that will make you work exactly following that. That's very difficult, I think. So I think maybe better just using hours and considering that you have to do JUnit test, Java doc, and all that. So if you could do hours, that would be pretty good, I think. Okay, hours a little bit, minutes maybe too accurate for the estimate. It's just an estimate. Okay, so in other words, if you think of 30 minutes, make it an hour. If you think it's like 45 minutes and an hour and a half, so this way you have some room for errors. Okay, so when you add them all up, all the efforts up, right? Then you get a total number of hours. And then total number of hours, then you can use that to plot onto a burn down chart. Okay, so that's something you can do. All right, so you can see how things get broken down now on the user module. You do the same thing for other modules. Okay, then you're gonna have to all put down the effort. That's gonna be your realistic effort. Okay, and then when you're done, then you do a burn down chart. Okay, now burn down chart. When I look at many of yours, burn down chart should tell you the progress you have made at any moment of time. Okay, now how much work remaining to do any moment of time. So you can look at the burn down chart. You can tell how many hours you have finished, how many tasks you have finished, and then where you are standing at this moment. So it is useless to just give me a projected finishing chart. The projected chart shows nothing. Okay, say there's the effort is 100 hours you needed, so just for argument's sake, 100 hours needed. You give me a burn down chart that is finished from day one to the deadline. But that doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell me how much progress you've made so far and where you are standing and how many more hours you're gonna need to finish it. Okay, so what you need to give me is something that's already finished. So the burn-down chart will show, for example, something like, let me second draw it up here, right? So this is the x-axis, that's the time, okay? And this y-axis is the effort. Okay, so initially you have this number of days, right? Say this number of days, and then initially you need to finish say 100 hours or 50 hours, whatever that is. So the first day, nothing's finished yet. So as you go each day and you put in number of hours, Okay, then you can say this is November. Let me write it like this, the date and time. Okay, November the 18th. So November the 18th. That's supposedly done. That's the last day. Okay, I don't remember when we started. It was October something. Was that October 30th or something? I don't remember. Say October the 30th. Say that's the day you started, right? So that 100%, you haven't done anything that time. So as you go, as you spend more hours, then you're gonna plot down. So it should be something like that. Okay. So it goes getting closer and closer to the deadline. So the amount of work remaining should be getting less and less. Okay, so don't so the first burn down chart you give to me should be something like this. You finish this amount. So I can tell you finished say you finished 20%, you still have 80% to go, for example, right? Then afterwards you can have this. So the second time you finish should be around the 70%. Okay, 70%, 67%. So that's what is supposed to finish at the second burn down chart. That's due yesterday, I think it was. Okay, and then the remaining. So I can tell at this moment you're getting closer. You finish 70%. So there's like a 30% to go after that deadline. Then tomorrow night. I mean, a Wednesday night. I'm sorry, the Wednesday night. So that's the burn down chart. So you can see how much more work you finished and how much more to do next. You got it? Okay. Don't give me one that is projected out already. Give me one line projected, the one can be finished. That means nothing. Burn down actually means actual work. Yeah. Okay, Jalio, go ahead. You have to you enable your microphone, Jalio. I'm sorry.
My apologies. I was saying that for those people that already submitted for the first due date, which was I believe Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other ones, do we again submit it on the last day, all three of them, with the updated burn down chart?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I gave a points on your submission, but doesn't mean anything. Okay, it
Mhm.
just means how far off you are, and it's not gonna count against you anything. But eventually, you should, like the next submission, you should do the one that is more like accurate. Don't give me a projected one. But if you did, no big deal. Just correct it, and this way. I mean, the whole purpose of giving you three deadlines for the burn down chart, so it's kind of allow you to assess yourself how much progress you made each step, each stage. So this way, you know how much more time you should budget into it. Okay, but it didn't make much difference. Some of you did, most people didn't care at all, so didn't handle anything. That's a little bit disappointing, but what can I do? Okay, go ahead, Jalio.
Now, I had another question in regards to the JUnit test and the Java doc.
Mhm,
For the JUnit test specifically, you said
mhm,
that we had to design it as we go, as we finish each module,
mhm,
so we can have it completely. But one
mhm,
of my problem was that
mhm.
I didn't know how should I design the JUnit test in a sense that should I test for the expected answer that that the customer has to put into the thing that I'm
Well,
testing?
way to do it. Say you finish the tree map, right?
Hmm.
And then you finish the add user, search user, remove user, right? So now you can test. You can test add user by add some dummy data into a dummy user
Oh,
object
that part.
into.
Mhm. I'm sorry, I was gonna say that part I know, but for the controller part, so like when you create those methods that are gonna be interacting with with the person that's gonna use the app, are we gonna test for
No,
the
no.
expected?
Well, you could, but But when you just finish the data store, if
Hmm.
you don't have a GUI, you can just use the console to test it. Just make sure those methods, add, search, remove methods work.
So like the model method, the model
Right.
package methods
Right.
you want to test, but not the controller, not the view, and nothing like that, right?
Right. But that's up to you, right? If you don't want, because the GUI is not needed for the tree map.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
So you
Okay.
don't have to have that part in, but you do know that the tree map, the user store should have a search method, add method, and remove method. So those methods you can test them on the console.
Okay.
Just to make sure the methods work. You don't have to worry about the GUI. GUI
So
is optional.
controller methods are considered GUI as well, right?
Right,
Oh, okay,
right,
okay. I didn't know.
right. That's considered to be GUI. And the GUI controller and model they are together.
Okay.
Right. But if you want to integrate them all together, you can test them in there as well. So that means
Uh-oh.
you're testing the console, you're testing the GUI, three things all at once. And usually you don't want to do that. You want every single unit gets tested. That's why it's called a JUnit test. You want to get the methods tested, not the whole package tested, not the whole view model controller tested. Not just the model part, the add method part, the search method part. So that part you can do on the console. If you do on the GUI, then you are making this too broad. You're testing the GUI. You're also testing the controller, and you don't want that. Okay, good. So that is your. Now also there are people make no connection. They here they instead of days, there are people just put in hours. Okay, say they use the hours for the master story list, and then when you do hours, it's very hard to know where you are standing. Okay, you don't know because there's no dates. You don't know where you are standing. You don't know. Okay, so somehow you have to realistically map where you are in terms of a deadline where you are. Okay, then you can tell you finish halfway or not finish halfway. Okay, so you have to have some kind of dates, so this way you know where you are. Now, some people just put a days. Okay, day one, day two, day three, day four, but that's harder to use when you put the days. It's better to use the date, which date you are in. Okay, like November 1st, you are there. November 3rd, you are there. November 6th, you are there. So this way you can tell exactly how much more work you have to put in from that day on until the deadline. Deadline is the day, the 18th, November the 18th. So you know that. Okay. So I think that's some of the things that you should be careful with. Okay. Now, somebody when they make the story lines, okay, they decided to mix everything. So they spend an hour on user, then they spend 2 hours on trails, 2 hours on history. Um, that's not a good idea. Okay, that's not a good idea. Because the whole idea of agile design is you want to finish each task completely or almost completely, okay, before you take on another task. Okay, if you want to do the traditional way or the waterfall one, then it doesn't matter. Okay, you can mix them all together, but we try to avoid that. We try to finish each task so you know how much you finished. Otherwise, you get everything spread it out, 2 hours here, 2 hours there, 5 hours there. So you don't really know how much progress you made and how many more hours you need down the road. Okay, so that's not a good idea. Um, you should have um, so some students, for example, will have something even more general. Some of them will write like a code data store or data storage. Didn't tell exactly what you want to do. So the whole thing was uh, code data store or storage. And so 3 days. And then GUI, and then 2 days. Obviously, that's not specific because data store has so much included in there. There's no general code data store. So you have to be specific, users, trails, and history, so on and so forth. Okay, there's no general GUI. It has to be specific which part of the GUI you're talking about. Okay, and also days. You don't really know what exactly days mean. Is it 24 hours a day? Is it 8 hours a day? Or 2 hours a day? Really depend on the day, right? Does that make sense? You have to be specific, right? The whole goal is so that you can predict when you're going to finish or how much work you have accomplished, right? By using days, you can't tell, right? Because it's not specific enough. Okay, your day maybe is 2 hours, another person's day is 5 hours, and you every day is actually different. One day you may be busy doing something else, you cannot put in as much time, so that day may be a short day. Another day maybe you can dedicate to this, that may be a long day. So that again, that's why it's not. I saw a lot of people doing that. Um, and then whatever units you use for this, say hours, okay, or if you want to use days, if you want to, then somehow this should be mapped on the x-axis. Okay, so x-axis should have a deadline, should have a days. Then the bottom line of it, though, the really is hours. If you want to think about it, okay, it's really hours. So this day you work 4 hours, then that's a date. So that's the say November the 1st. That day you worked 4 hours. So that's what we put in. But another day is only work 2 hours. Okay. So that's 2 hours. So that day is November the 2nd. Okay. This is a is a less the date is less um of importance is not as critical as hours because the hours are what mapped into your module into your master story list is the hours. So if it's the hours, then this is what hours should be. Then the hours they map the date onto the hours. So the curve the in other words the first then it just happens to be dates once you know the hours because you know each day how many hours you're going to work, then you can map dates onto it. I guess this is not clear. Let me do this again. So um, so the x-axis, right, should reflect the effort you need on the master story list. Is that okay? So effort should map that, so to match that. So if this is 50 hours in terms of work you need to finish the master story list, then you may want 50 segments here. 50 segments. Okay. Now the word I was looking for is a secondary. So when you try to map your dates, dates are secondary. Okay, that means the 50 of this. Okay, and then you just happen to map the dates, secondary dates onto the hours. One day you may work 2 hours, that's fine. That will be November the 1st. Another day you maybe work 4 hours, that's fine. And this will be late November the 2nd. Another day maybe 10 hours, then that's fine. That's your November the 3rd. So dates are secondary, but hours is concrete. That's how many hours you need, how many hours you put in, and then that gives you a solid map or solid chart. Okay, because the days is not solid. A day could be any number of hours from 0 to 24, but hours is concrete. That's how many hours you spend on this project on that day. So the word I was looking for is secondary. Date is secondary, hours is primary when you build this chart. So I don't know if you understand it. Do you understand? Do you have questions? And also, when I look for a chart, I don't look for a table. So somebody will give me a table, just say 10 hours finished, 20 hours finished, 30 hours finished. That's not enough. I need a chart. A chart is a diagram like what I have here that shows you the burn down, how much work you finished. Okay, don't give me a projected trajectory. That has no meaning to me. You can say a perfect line straight from here to finish to that line, but doesn't mean anything because it doesn't mean you can do it. And a few of you actually projected both. That's fine. The projected trajectory versus you finished trajectory. That's fine. But if you have the two lines completely overlap, perfectly match, that's not realistic because nobody can predict that accurately. Okay, that's usually a lie because nobody can do it, right? You either overestimate or underestimate. That's more likely. More likely you underestimate, and it turns out to be true. When I look at some of your chart, it shows that you actually underestimate the amount of work. You took more time to finish the work than you actually budgeted for, which is more reasonable than the other way. But a perfect match, that's just a lie for the most part. You can't have a perfect match every day. You know, you budget the 2 hours, actually finish 2 hours, budget 5 hours, actually finish 5 hours. That's just incredible. Okay. Literally incredible. All right. All right. I want to stop here a little bit, just see if you have any questions. No? No questions? That's crazy. All right. Again, right? The major problem is some of you, I can tell, lazy. Okay, like when you do the master story list, user module 2 days. Okay, trails module 3 days, and then the history module 3 days. That's too general. That's not good. That's a good tell of you are lazy, right? Because how can you make a decision? What is it based on? Okay, what do you mean by days? Right? Is an 8 hour day, a 24-hour day, or 2 hour day? So that's why it's not a good idea. So you want to be more specific. Okay. So I think because you guys are not full-time doing it, you have other classes, you have other work, a job, part-time, full-time on the side. So it probably a good idea to use hours rather than using days. I mean, at a workplace, when you work for a company, okay, that's reasonable. Days, reasonable. 1 day's work, 2 days work. because you go to work for 8 hours. Okay, that's implied a day is 8 hours. But for you guys, you shouldn't use days because I cannot, or you cannot assume a day is 8 hours because you don't know. You have other things to do, right? You don't dedicate a whole 8 hours a day to work on this. So hours is more reasonable. So that should reflect on your x-axis. The y-axis also, that should be the number for the same units of the effort. If it's hours, it should be hours. That they say there's 100 hours work to do, or there's only 50 hours work to do to begin with. Then you start to burn down. So as you finish more, you come down, and so this is 50, this is 25, this is 0. So don't give me a percentage. Don't give me a percentage. Because percentage is only estimate. Okay, say so this is 100%, this is 50%, this is 0%. If you do this way, it's very hard to use because you don't know what is the percentage when you whether it is your estimated percentage or this is your actual percentage finished. You don't know what is it based on. When you say you finish 50%, you finish 50% of your estimated amount of work, or this reflects your actual percentage. You don't know. Okay, so just plainly use hours. Say you have 50 hours work to do. Okay, that's a bunch of effort you need. Then if you finish 25 hours, you finished half of the task, the effort. Okay, so don't use the plain percentage, in other words. It's very ambiguous what that means. But hours is more precise. Okay, so so many of you just too general. I think you err on the general side rather than the detail side. Let me see. Okay, so I think that's what I saw, and then so don't worry about the grades on it. This is like how far away it is from what deviated from what I expect. So it's not like your grades. It's not your grades really. Okay. There's also I try to make 3 deadlines so you will feel like you have obligation to do some work by a certain time. But apparently that didn't help. Um, you may need to make a chart. Don't give me a table for the burn down chart. And the projected work is um, is granted. Say you don't need to give me the projected progress. You should give me the actual progress. That's exactly what I need, not projected progress. Projected means nothing. Everybody project to finish the work, but what I want to see is actual progress. Okay, and also when you're doing through the master story list, you make sure all the work needed is included. I see many of you actually do this. User module, uh, just say GUI. It's not a coherent. I don't see a coherent effort there. You just add a few random tasks that are needed, but it's not a coherent full story. Okay, uh, so you need a complete story for a module. In other words, not just a random task. Um, some people will just say log in without the data store set up ahead of time, without talking about distinguish different users, uh, without giving specific how you can log in if you don't add users and you don't be able to search users. You think about a login, you have to search the user. You have to search for that key, that key with that the user login, that username, right? You should be able to find that user, that key in the tree map. If it returns, that means there's a match. There's no return, that means there's no match. So there's a lot of work to do actually if you just want to log in. And that should be all specified if possible. Okay, but if you don't want to be very specific, that's fine, but just don't make it too general. Don't just say store data, GUI. That store data is just too general, way too general. Okay, that defeats the whole purpose. Also, try not wait until the end to do JUnit test, Java doc, and GUI. GUI maybe, but definitely don't leave JUnit test and Java doc to the end. When everything gets finished, you're gonna add a JUnit test. That's against the whole design principle of agile approach. Okay, that's complete against it. You cannot do testing in the end. That's the old waterfall approach. Do testing in the end. Then when you're running out of time, don't test. Then you produce a faulty product. So that's what you want to avoid. So when I saw you put down unit test in the end, every end of everything, and Java documentation end of everything, that's something you should avoid. Okay, I'm not going to ask you whether you're going to finish by Wednesday. I assume you're going to finish by Wednesday because that's the deadline I gave to you 2 weeks ago. Because if I ask you, then I'm sure you're going to say you need another 2 weeks. But no, get it finished and then call it a day. Okay? And then try to beat the deadline. Because if you don't beat the deadline, I'm going to repeat this one more time. If you don't beat the deadline, you're not going to be able to submit. That means you have nothing. Think about the consequence of that. You have nothing. All right? Is that okay? That means you have 2 days, Wednesday. I think the projects due, when I said it earlier, the projects due before class, the burn down chart is due end of that day, like at midnight. All right, questions? We're gonna have to move on, in terms of the progress. Cannot have more and more time. And many of you didn't hand in anything the whole semester, so you may just have to let me know what your plans are, um, because the next semester 248 is full, and then there are people waiting to get in. So if you are interested in retaking it, you let me know. Maybe I can open a new session. When I make a new section, then you can get in. Otherwise, now is full. You cannot get in. And if you haven't handed in anything, most likely either you're going to not finishing the course, you get an F, or you're going to retake it. You cannot graduate, get a degree without taking this course or finishing this course with a pass the course. That's the right way to say it. So, but you don't have to pass it. You can just move on, transfer without the course. It may be okay, depending on the school, but you won't get a associate degree. If you don't care, that's fine. But if you do want to get a degree, finish this, then transfer, because that usually that's a SUNY requirement. Then you have to retake this one. I don't know what you're thinking if you haven't had anything, and many of you did. Any questions? Kind of sad. It is, right? I don't know what to do, what to say. Um, Let me see if there's any other comments I wrote down here. Right, I see a lot of those like a user module, trail module, history module, and GUI module. That's it. All right, so that's all the comments I have. So if you want to improve, you can still improve. Whatever you did in the first two submissions for the burn down chart doesn't really affect you in any way. Just do it correctly and give it to me on Wednesday before the end of the day. All right? Nobody's happy. Why? You saw it coming, right? You saw it coming. It wasn't like something happened overnight. If no questions, then we're going to start something new. And I was surprised you guys didn't show up to the Monday nights class. That wasn't next. That was an actual lecture. And I thought that was useful.
Professor.
Yes.
So for the next after the project, we're moving to databases and I guess multi-threading is what is left.
Oh no, we have so much left. This we have so much to do left to do. So I'm debating what do we want to do next. There are a few things I'm going to list over here. We would like to cover, but I don't think we can cover, so we're gonna make a decision. Okay. There are things that we would like to cover. Okay, then since we are running out of time, it's this semester has been like a big struggle. Um, I guess because the semester before we had online courses, so people didn't learn as well. So we spent a lot of time reviewing data structures, but I don't know how you feel after this review. It seems to me many of you are much better, had a much better understanding of data structures um, by looking at the project you did so far. I think all the actual time was necessary, seems to me. The J the API um, application using tree map and then tree set, hash map. So all the things we did, I thought was necessary, needed. So we didn't really waste time. We just spent a lot of time reviewing stuff we should have learned before. I don't know how you feel, but that's what I feel. I feel like that was a good exercise to learn the data structures and learn the API. So at least that part is solid to the people who actually worked, who did work, right? Do you feel that way, that you have better understanding of data structures? Yes. So that part is good. Now, the part we're left to do is I make a list here. Mine is called design patterns. Okay, design patterns. There are many of those to talk about, but one that we already use or applied is called a model view controller, MVC design pattern. That's one, and there are many others I would like to talk about. So we'll see. Maybe we can. One solution to that problem is rather than um, type the code with you and teach you by writing examples, by setting up examples. Instead, we'll show you the application. So this way, we can do it faster. So we can cover many design patterns, even though you don't get a chance, or we don't get a chance to apply them ourselves. But at least we know what they are, what they mean by looking at some examples. Okay, so that's possibility. There's so many of those. I think are very important. Basically, this will design pattern will take you to a level that's higher than 240, 218. To a level is about design. Okay, 218 is about efficiency. Now we are on the level of design. How to look at a problem and break it down and have multiple modules and then work coherently, make the whole program work coherently among different modules. Okay, when I say work coherently, means the program becomes easy to troubleshoot, easy to implement, and easy to scale up and down. So if the program gets bigger, the application gets bigger, you can scale easily without redesign the whole program. So it's more easier to accommodate to changes in the future. So that's the purpose of the design patterns. Okay, but this is a level much higher than what we've been doing. Almost like if you want to become an architect, software architect, so that's what you use. All right. In doing this, we're going to talk about a lot of application of interfaces. Um, so you will see why interfaces are important. Another thing we need to do is databases. Now, databases basically allow you um, to to abandon all the data structures we use. So that's totally another way of storing data. Okay, that's more um, it's more like a prevalent way of storing data using special specially designed software programs to store data. And the software programs are meant to store data. So it has all the benefits, efficiency, and so on and so forth that's meant for storing data. So that's something we would like to talk about. Because when data gets really big and complicated, we tend not use data structures to do it. Instead, we use databases that are specially designed programs for data storage. Okay, so that's called databases. Now, another thing we usually talk about is multi-threading. Now, multi-threading allows you to develop programs that can accommodate multiple users, okay, on multiple sessions. So many people can use the same program at the same time. Okay, so multiple people can log in, use the same program, update the data, update this data storage at the same time. That's called multi-threading. Okay, very important concept because very few programs are meant for one person to use at a time. So that was part of our um, design of the curriculum. And the last we usually talk about is called the networking. How to write programs that can talk, communicate over the internet. So this way you can have multiple computers working over the internet at the same time on the same project or using the same data source. Okay, so you have a program that holds the data, that has the data, but multiple people from different places on the internet can use the data. So data can be uploaded and downloaded, um, uploaded to one place, downloaded from one place to different places. So that's called the networking. And there's another topic um, is very interesting is use something called JSON. Okay, JSON, um, which and web. Okay, or web store. So this means that data can be put onto a central location on the cloud. Okay, then all the users, programs everywhere can upload data to the central place or download from the central place. Okay, for example, if you go to any kind of a Google or Apple Store or Google Play, there are hundreds of different weather applications. Okay, that will tell you the weather. But all those apps, all the programs, they get the data pretty much from one place. Okay, NOAA, NOAA, and then that's where data gets stored. Then everybody go get it to get the data. Okay, and organize, present the data to you. So they present differently, even though the data coming from the same place, but they present the format data differently to people. So that is something extremely important because that's how the whole world uh, how the world works right now in terms of data on the internet. Um, that's how we actually store data and use the data on the internet. So that's called JSON web store and cloud storage. So um, so obviously the JSON is the most important if you want to go to develop web apps, mobile apps. That's very important. Um, that has really made the networking and the multi-threading obsolete because the that already has most of the capabilities built in. So when you have a web store on the internet, many people can download data already. So there is a built-in multi-threading and there's a built-in networking because people from everywhere can access it. Okay, so I thought this is very important. And so I thought maybe we can sacrifice multi-threading, sacrifice networking, instead talk about this, and then when we talk about this, we can discuss multi-threading networking as a small part of it. Okay. Now, how much time should we talk about design patterns? That's a big question because design pattern can be very extensive, will take weeks to do, or could be done in a couple weeks. It seems like that's what we have. We don't have a lot of time. We only have about 4 weeks after this week because this week, Wednesday is deadline for your project. Okay, so that's it. So that's why we don't have extra time for you to extend to submit the project. You have to submit it by Wednesday. All right. So that's pretty much um, what we would like to talk about. Then obviously we cannot do all this. So what I think is maybe we're going to just touch upon different things uh, in a more superficial way. So this way you have an idea. You can put it on your resume even to make your resume look nicer without giving a lot of details. Because once you have a good idea what this is about, then you can look into each one and look into details in each one yourself. That seems to me that's the only realistic way at this time. Okay, without really covering a lot of details in any particular thing, right? Because any particular thing can be used. Any particular thing will need the whole time we have left if we want to cover in some really detail. So the only way to cover most of it is not cover details, but talk about the ideas and what the applications and how to use them. Give you some examples so you know how it's used. And that's it. Okay. So I would like to hear from you and see what you think. Um, and then don't forget we have another thing to do is we have a final exam. Okay. So if you didn't hand anything for the first and second project, okay, then you probably have no chance of passing the course. So you probably should decide something, either retake this in the spring or um, try to transfer without the course or um, just quit without even transferring. I don't know what the third option. Just retake it to finish it so you can get an associate degree, then transfer, or not taking it, not graduate, and then see if you can transfer. Okay. I don't even know what happened, why it got this bad. I never had this bad experience this bad, to be honest with you. So many of you, probably half of the class, are in the situation that you're not going to pass. So that's how scary it is. And I did my best. I tried to convince you that you should get on, to the work and keep up and then tried everything and make deadlines and then didn't help. People just ignore all the deadlines. I led you to extend the deadlines, didn't help either. But this is the point that we cannot extend anymore. All right, so what do you think? What do you think we should do with the remaining time we have? We don't have much time because this is the week we're done. The Wednesday is deadline for handing everything for the project, right? Then you have 1 week in November. Okay, then you are December. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So that means you have 4 weeks after this week. And then this week, we're going to have a test. That's all. So 4 weeks before the test, then we end. Right? 4 weeks. So that means after this week, 4 weeks left. And if we have 4 weeks left, each of this maybe is 1 week. I really would like to see how things work on the web, how data gets transmitted back and forth. That's just so fascinating. Okay, so fascinating. It will open your eyes like entering a new parallel universe. Okay, how data gets transmitted back and forth, how amazing it is. So I really would like to see expose that to you, so you get an idea about it, so you don't feel too out of place when you talk about it or people talk about it in the future. You definitely need it for your future work. Okay, and design pattern just will take you to a whole level of looking at Java or looking at the programming. Is a whole different level, much higher. So you have like a bird's eye view of design. Okay, so I would like to talk about that, um, and then would love to show you how to use database just because it's so popular. Everybody uses database. So it's a shame finishing this course without showing you how to use database. We may not necessarily have to use it, but I'd like to show you how we can use it, give you some examples, so this way you feel like at least you've seen it, and you learn the terminology. So I know it's difficult for many of you. I feel sorry. I don't know how I can make you feel better. If you didn't do anything, and I'm sorry I cannot pass you if you didn't do anything. It's almost like a lot of people are not in the right mind. Okay? They're not reading. They're not care about deadlines. Almost like living in a dream world. I don't know why. Any suggestions? Any comments? It's not easy, right? It's not easy. I was hoping that things are more interesting to you, because now you can actually putting things together. No comments, no questions, nothing. No. If nothing, then I would just go the way I talked about. I'm gonna show you design patterns, show you some main ones, what they're used for, and then we're gonna talk about databases. Then we're gonna talk about and JSON and how to get the data, transmit the data back and forth on the internet, because this is so fundamentally important. And then we will easily kill 4 weeks. Okay, and then the final exam will just be some questions on design pattern and on databases and then and maybe some query. You can get the data from the internet. Okay, that is like another universe there. There's so much out there you can get data from. I thought it was very interesting. Good. Are you guys still okay? You still, yeah? So we have 21 people, 5 students, at least 5 are missing. So as you imagine, decide to give up. Oh, one thing I think is very important. If you want to withdraw, right? If you want to withdraw, I cannot give you a W. Instead, you're gonna have to fill out a form to get a W. I cannot just wait till the last day, give you a W. Okay, but by the way, you can still get a W. I guess that's the most important thing. You can still get a W if you want a W. Okay, but the point is, I cannot give you a W just by telling you in the end you get a W. Instead, you have to fill out a form, and then fill out the form. What happens is um, the college will get the form from you and then will contact you, imagine. Otherwise, why they want to do it? They'll ask you and see why you want to withdraw, why didn't you finish, um, you know, try to talk you into staying, okay? Because to the college, um, it makes no sense to withdraw, okay? When you withdraw, most time means you're gonna go elsewhere. You're not gonna stay with the college. That's why colleges are worried. They want to talk to you, say stick into it and stay on, and then finish. But they don't understand certain subjects. You just cannot stay on. Okay, so that's what they want. They want you to fill out a form, then they may call you or email you and try to talk you out of it. And that's the only thing they want. But if you insist you want to withdraw, they will let you withdraw. But they won't just let me give you a W, unlike what we did before. Okay. So if you want to withdraw, you maybe send me an email. I can tell you the withdrawal form, or you can go to the college website and search for withdrawal form. Electronic copy, you can fill out the form online and file it online, and then that's it. I don't know if you need my signature. I don't think you need my signature. Um, you can just get a W that way. The school made it easier to get a W, but the harder part is they want to talk to you to try to make you stay. But there are things that is impossible to do, so I don't think you should stay if you haven't handed in anything, right? Because you have nothing to show for the grade. Okay, for the reason it is difficult. All right, good. Okay, so we don't have much time. We're going to talk about the first design pattern, model view controller. Okay. Model view controller is directly against what we used to do. Okay. What we used to do is something like this. Okay. Let me close this. Go to, by the way, nobody contacted me, try to have actual class on Wednesday last week. So we didn't have anything. The only thing we had was Monday night. Oh, actually, I want to show you what we did in the end on Monday night, last Monday night. I think this is I uploaded all the code just in case you were interested. I don't know if you look at it or not. So here is something I think is good to show you. Um, so we have a program that let me run the program. It's a pretty simple program. Okay, so I'm gonna run the program. That's a GUI, okay, JavaFX, and we did this using Scene Builder. Okay, so in this case, we have a model, which is a string bag. In your case, for your project, will be like a user store, which is the bag, or trail store, or history store, right? But I just made a simple example. In this case, it's a string bag. String bag, you can see just an array of strings. Okay, but in your case, you're gonna be say a tree map of users. Okay, or a tree set of trails, if you like. Okay, or a linked list of history. Okay, but that is really abstracted inside this string bag. So whatever data structures you want to use, in my case, I use a string array, right? Use case can be anything. So exposed to outside world is just a storage for data structure to store data, right? In this case, I can store a bunch of strings, right? Then I had the insert method, the remove method, and in my case, just the add remove two methods. But in your case, you're gonna have a search and some other things like that. Okay, so this is the traditional Java class we've been writing. We call them POJOs, meaning plain old Java object. So we put them into a package called a model. That means data storage. So that's where data gets stored. So you're gonna have a bunch of models, classes. Those are for users, for trails, for history. Okay, you can put them in the same model if you want to. No big deal. It's not too complicated. Or you can have them in multiple different models. But just when you have multiple different models, just name it so we know those are model packages. Okay, in our case, just one, very simple, just one array. Um, we model it as a bag. Okay, now we have a main class. The main class has a start method and has a main method. Because it's JavaFX, so the main method just has a launch method in there, which is static. Okay, and then we have the main start method. Start method is where we set up the bag. Okay, right now it's an empty bag. In other words, we initialize a data store. Well, I should have said initialize an empty data store. At this point, there's no data. Okay, but does have data structure initialized to store. In your case, could it be a map, could it be a tree set, and so on and so forth, and all of them, even a linked list. Okay, now if this is only one line, I put into the start method, but you could have another class inside the model called store setup. Okay, in there, it has a static method that will allow you to run the different uh, data structure, instantiate different data structures. So this way, you do not have to expose them in here, right? You understand? So in other words, this method, this whole statement could be inside here, okay? So I'm gonna call this class init or initialize. Okay, whatever you want, initialization, whatever you want to call this. Um, so inside there, you're gonna have a static method. So private static, then void, and then you have the init. Okay, And the init, how do you init? You just init this a string bag. So I'm gonna have a string bag there, private string bag. Okay, the uh, bag. Okay, so let's say init, that means the bag equals new string bag. Okay. So say 1,000, whatever the case. So this the bag that's static. Okay. So by doing this, when you need to have the bag created, then you just go in here, just call this. Okay, just call this static method, and the static method is initialization dot init. Okay. And then this will allow you to create maybe initialization init, and then that creates a object. You create all the stuff, right? What do you create? Let me show you. Did I call init? I forgot. Initialization. Yeah, init. So you init, so you create all this. And once you create all this, then you use a get different stuff. So here is public. No, this should be public. Why is it private? Public. Okay. Then public static. Okay. Then you could say this is a string bag and get string bag. Then you're going to return string bag, the bag. That so now this is string bag. Say this is equivalent to your user bag or user store, right? So you can do this for other stores, trail store or whatever store initially, if you want to do that way. Okay, so if you want to do trail store, so let me just change this name to something more make sense to your project. So this is called the user store. Okay, and then another one would be private static. This is going to be uh, so you need to have a class that's a user store. Okay, so here, let me just create a class. User store. Inside of that, you're going to use a tree map, for example. Okay, so then I have another one is called trail store. Inside there, data structure is a set, a tree set. Okay, so here is a tree set, and this is going to be a tree map. Okay, that's where you're going to store the data, right? So here you just create them. So rather than, so this will be a user store. Okay, you're going to user store. Then you're going to say user store. And then that's new user store. New user store will allow you to create that tree map. So new user store. Okay, there you go. All right. And then you also do the trail store. Trail store. Private static. So trail store. Trail store. Now, if you did your project, hopefully you know what I'm talking about, because the three things are stored at different places, right? User trail and history. Private static history store. Okay. History store. History store. Okay. Let me just create a history store in the here. Okay. So here, the data structure is going to be a linked list. So when you add stuff, you add the linked list. Here is going to be say, a tree map. When you add something, add a tree map into the object of the tree map with a key and a value, right? And then trail store is a tree set. So you add the new trails into here. So this is going to be a tree set. Okay, will be something like tree set, right? So here you need a class called a trail, right? The trail store. Then you would say tree set equals new, or you can do it in the constructor, right? So at least you know this is a tree set here, and the user store is going to go private, and you're going to tree map, a tree map, and here is going to be user inside, right? So tree map, and then you have a constructor allow you to build a tree map. Okay, same thing with the history. You have a linked list. So private linked list, and then that's going to be your whatever object you want to call a history. Okay, so each one has an event or history, or hiking event or history, whatever you want to call it. Story, and you're going to say history list. So now here, then you just create them here, see? Then your trail store equals new trail store, right? Then you're gonna say history store equals new history store. All right, so now you're gonna return, this is gonna user store. Okay, so you're gonna get return user store, and then this user store, return user store. Okay, see the init method builds 3 objects, 3 stores in one shot. So you don't need the 3 statements when you go to the main. When you main, all you have to do is this, right? And then once you have that, then you can get every store you want. So you'll be say user store equals initialization dot get user store. See, that will give you the user store. Get user store. Did I say get user store? Get a string. Get a user store. Right, so you change this method, you can get a user store, and then you can copy this and get a trail store. The trail store, and then this will return trail store. No, slow is the trail store. So I didn't write that. Oh, maybe I did. So this way you can get whatever you want, and you pass into the main. See, user store, get user store. User store have to import. User store, you're gonna call it the user store. User store equals that. So user store. Do I have user store? I think I did. Yeah. Import from model. So this way you get all the stores. You get all the stores. You initialize, you set up all the stores, you get all the stores, you get a user store, you get all the other stores as well. So this will be trail store. This will be history store. And then this will be trail store. This will be history store. So I'm going to import this and import the history store. So I didn't write those two getters. So you get everything just by doing this. So your demo is simpler. Okay. Then here's loading the view. Because we separate the view, we put all the view things into one file, which is this view, this one. I have two views. One is the first scene, one is the second scene. Okay. I have them. All right. So then there's a controller, and here, controller package. I have two controllers, and for each view, there is a separate controller. There's one controller. Right. Now here is where you specify where the controller is located. Okay, that's where you specify. And because I made so much change, the program obviously is not going to work. I added so much stuff. So if I, right, so see, I just added so much stuff. But the main thing should work, which is this one, which is just the initialization. The bag should work. Okay, the one, the bag, that was one originally in there, that should work. So the string bag, the string bag is I call it just a store. String store. Okay, I'm gonna call it string store. So here is string store equals new string bag, and then give the size. So this is unneeded, not needed for your project, but for my demonstration, I needed something. So I did that. Is it frozen?
At least for me, I don't know for the others if there is frozen.
It's frozen for me too.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, let me
There we
see
go.
what's going on. Okay, let me. Okay, I reshared, unshared, and reshared. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. It's okay now?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't need this. This is not going to work because I didn't finish those. That should still work. And this is not going to work because I didn't do anything. Okay, the only thing is I have a strings bag, string store. And then I have the I do want to get the string store. So I want to say public static string bag. I think I'm gonna string bag. Then just say get string bag. Return string store. Sorry, the string store. The string store. Again.
Yeah, I think there's maybe bad internet reception in where you are, because even your face is frozen sometimes as well. But your voice is fine, at least.
Okay, let me disable my video. Maybe that's not necessary. Still the same. Do you see my cursor moving?
Mm-mm.
No, it's still frozen.
You don't see- still frozen. Hmm. Okay, I disabled it and then let me do it again. I'm sorry. So let me enable. How about now? Can you see my screen? Is moving? Do you see my cursor moving? No?
Yeah.
Little by little.
Okay, little by little. All right, let me see if I can get this work. Go to the main, save all this, go to main. So I don't need any of this. I just need to get the bag because I need to get the bag. So that has the bag. So I have the string bag. Oh, there's a bag already there. Good. So the bag equals initialization dot get bag. Get a string bag. I think that's what it is called. Get a string bag. And now I have the bag. Oh, I think it's a free frozen again. Yes?
Yeah, it keeps
I don't
freezing.
know. Uh, so I guess the whole point is that by using this, I was able to abstract all this creation of the stores, the classes into an initialization class. So do all this in one place rather than putting into the main, into the start. All right, so let me see if I can save this. You still cannot see it, right? I disabled my video. Can you disable your videos? See if will help. Okay. Let me reshare. And let me present. Do you see anything on my screen?
I see the screen, but again, if you're moving the mouse, I don't see it moving, for example.
Still,
Yeah.
what about now? Can you see it?
I saw it moving.
Like it's
Okay.
a little bit laggy, I guess.
So basically, basically I just created a bag, and then I can send this to whoever I need. But who needs it is the controller need it. You will see the controller will get the bag. You see, there's a bag, and then you will get the bag from the main. So the bag is passed to the controller. So controller has a knowledge of the bag, which is the model, also has a knowledge of the view, which is this. Okay, and I have two view files, which I use the sim builder to build them. I use the sim builder. So let me just show you, right? So this is what happens. And then here is some information, say hi as a string. Change to add to bag, hi gets to add the bag, say buy gets to the bag. Now I can change to a different scene, scene 2. Now there's a different scene, right? And the scene I can show what's inside the bag, high and buy. You see that? Is in there. And I can change back to the first original scene. Okay, so this program should be very helpful for your application because it allows you to start the main scene, then goes to other scenes like a trail scene or user scene or create a user scene or history scene, so on and so forth. So this is the idea of a model view controller. Um, I guess so this is the controller, and then I have a bag, then I have a number of elements in the bag, and then I have an output area which is injected into the scene builder, into the graph. So there's a method called a change scene button that matches the first button when I say change the scene to scene 2 or scene 1. And then this is how you load the first file from this view for seeing the graph, okay, the view. And this is show bag, which is I need an elms to show it. So just append it to this. As I remove, I add append text and add a next line. Okay, so this will make it going, every line is going on separate line. All right. Um, yeah, so that's I first initially load the first scene. The first scene is here. And then from the first scene, I go to the second scene. From the second scene, I can jump back to the first scene. So this is how you load them. The whole program is built into 3 parts. You have a model that contains the bag file, which is really just string bag here. And you have a view, contains nothing but the view. If you want to see it, it goes like this. You saw that view. For the first one, just a text field and then 2 buttons. That's the view. And if you look at the view file, it has no knowledge of the model, the bag, has no knowledge of the bag. All it knows is who the controller is. Controller is called the first scene controller. And if you look at the second scene, is knows about the second. That's the controller. It knows has no knowledge of the model or the bag. Okay, so it is the controller that linking them together. Controller knows the bag, knows it has a text field, has the method when the 2 buttons gets clicked. One button gets clicked, it shows change the scene to the second scene, second XML. And the other method is when you click on the second button, it will insert whatever from the text field and into the bag, into the bag, and clear the text field. Okay, initialize just to get data ready. How do you get the data ready? You just run the main, get the static method to get the bag memory address to this controller. Okay, and the bag is created in here, in when I call the here. So I get the bag in the main. So I guess we don't have time to go over in detail. And if you run into difficulties, if you need some extra time to do it, but I hate to offer you another chance if you don't show up. So only when you have a number of people who are interested, I'll be happy to show you how to do this. But or you can just read the code I uploaded last Monday. Okay, I think that's it for the day. Um, do you have any questions?
No question.
There's a lot of things to think about. Any questions? No? If not, then I guess I will see you on Wednesday. Okay, then we're gonna break it down further. Then we look at the other design patterns. So this is the very common design pattern. There's a lot of others. So I'm gonna show you others. I'm not gonna code with you. I'm gonna just upload the code and go over the code with you. This way you can get an idea what they're about without spending too much time coding, because with the little time we have. Okay, good. All right, see you on Wednesday. Work on your project, hand in by Wednesday. You won't have a second chance, okay? Bye. Adios.